Spirit Untamed, a feature film version of the Netflix show that's also a spin-off of both that and the original Spirit movie. Let me just say right off the bat that I am kind of a big fan of the original Spirit. It's not a masterpiece by any means, but it told a simple and humble story about a horse that's trying to get back to his herd, forms a camaraderie with Native Americans, and carries a strong theme of standing up against colonization through the trust and bond between a horse and a man. A horse that, by the way, was impossible to tame normally without the right amount of care. And this movie is basically like, fuck all that nonsense, we need a girl and her horse movie. We need a strong female protagonist because that's what all the demographics love nowadays. Ugh, so what's the story? Well, tell me if you've heard this one before. For this girl and her horse story, we focus on a girl named Lucky who has to move from the city into the country. While on her way, she meets a wild horse named Spirit, who, by the way, is not the same Spirit from the first movie, it's likely his descendant. And believe me, you'll notice it very quickly. She wants to be more daring and hates having to follow the rules all the time, but her father is way too protective because of an incident that happened with her mother, of course. She manages to bond with Spirit, almost painfully easily by the way, but his herd is captured, so she and her friends have to venture off to save them. Now, riddle me this. Did that sound like every generic girl and her horse movie you've ever heard of? That's because it literally is. Listen, I know I'm not the primary audience for this movie. Considering it's almost nothing but girls riding on horses, it's obviously made for little girls who fantasize that. But that is no excuse to not even bother trying with the story, because like I said, it goes in just about every boring and generic plot trope you can ever imagine. A girl who wants to do more, but she's not allowed to, until she meets a wild horse that'll change her life, and through the power of friendship, they'll succeed their adventure. You know what it kinda reminds me of? How to Train Your Dragon, which borrows similar elements but handles them a million times better. The main character becomes more confident in himself, a stronger bond is built for those he loves, and it shows how even a dangerous species can be tamed and loved. It was more than just a boy and his dragon movie, whereas this movie doesn't try anything new, and as a result, makes for one of the most boring films I've seen all year. It'd be one thing if I cared about the characters, but I don't. They aren't characters, they're caricatures. Lucky is just your everyday free spirit girl who doesn't follow the rules and gets herself into trouble, but she has a strong heart and cares about animals. She's the token equivalent of girl power because apparently making a strong female was more important than making a strong character. There's the villains who are the perfect equivalent of flat cutouts of the ones from the first movie. Then there's Lucky's friends who go with her. Have I sucked you in yet? And we can't forget the dead parent trope. That's the only reason Lucky's dad is so protective, because her mother died during a horse show. And don't even get me started on Spirit himself. I know it's not the same horse, but by God, the one in the original was a Chad. He was a strong leader, had a strong bond with Native Americans, and hardly needed anyone's help to achieve his goals. This dude straight up destroyed construction of a railway just to save some horses. What a champion. This Spirit, meanwhile, well, he doesn't have inner monologues voiced by Matt Damon, so that's something I guess. But get this, he needs Lucky's help to free his herd, and he gets easily tamed by her. Oh, but that's only because she's special, and she has free spirit, get it? Because the horse's name's Spirit. Fuck off, movie. Remember all those defining elements that made the original Spirit stand out on its own? Spirit Untamed gives a giant fuck you to everything it stood for to make way for some of the most boring and frustrating tropes done for these kind of movies. Horses' connection to Native Americans? Gone. Actual focus on the horses themselves? Gone. Likeable characters? Gone. Beautiful 2D animation? All gone. I know it sounds like I'm purely complaining about what I want rather than what I got, but that's only because there's a better movie that exists, so why bother making this? Just to cater to fans of the show? Or girls who like horses? This is a big budget animated movie released by DreamWorks in theaters. No shit, people are giving this movie a hard time. And how is that animation? It's surprisingly bad. They actually got a different company to do the animation because of COVID-19 impacting work at the studio. I understand that method, but there still should have been some creative force to make the movie look good, but aside from a couple shots, it just looks cheap. Again, like it was originally supposed to be a direct-to-DVD movie. With that said though, I actually really like how the Spirit in this movie is primarily expressing his emotions through his animation. The lack of Matt Damon narration is a bit off, but actually seeing the horse show off how he feels through body movement and facial expressions is actually commendable. I'll give the movie that. But aside from that, there's not much. I know I've been giving this movie a hard time, but that's only because it all feels completely shallow and corporate. Nothing is original, nothing is unique, nothing is likable, it's all just one corporate shell that was clearly made for a quick buck. And with all the generic, boring, frustrating tropes that this movie's done that's already been done billions of times already, combined with everything it did that went against the first movie's intentions, is why I think it's one of DreamWorks' worst movies so far. I'm not at all shaming anybody who likes this movie, but please try to understand where I'm coming from. It's still not quite the worst animated movie of 2021, I have grown softer to it over time, but if you want my advice, throw this piece of shit into a ghost town and just go watch the original, and by extension, maybe ignore the Netflix show too.